I have no judgment of this landscape that I live in. It makes living here easier to say it out loud, to give voice to the wounds I see in them, in this place. I took some out-of-town friends to visit Braddock the other day. We parked by the steelworks, the first and last steelworks, the first mill Carnegie built, the last mill working on the eastern seaboard. As I parked, I looked at the U.S. Steel water tower. There was a man I knew. His dad worked for U.S. Steel. His dad broke his baby teeth. His dad drank too much and beat his family in the name of the stress of keeping his job through the downsizing 70s and 80s. He would get done with work and go to the bar in his one suit and tie. He would pick a fight with someone, but before he got blood on that suit, he would go home and change. Then he'd go back to the bar and beat the man who challenged him. After he quit drinking, nobody in the family owned up to their injuries. Nobody owned up to the wounds Papa made, 'cause he paid for everything. In Braddock, we toured the library, even though it was supposed to be closed. We saw the empty full-length swimming pool Carnegie built as appeasement to prevent his workers from making unions. Empty, white, and broken-tiled, dirty swimming pool lined with filing cabinets and boxes and desks. Carnegie gave his men a 2-lane bowling alley, a gorgeous music hall, pale blue seats with velvet worn through and flecked with faded gold paint. I imagine a candlelit chandelier hoisted up above, and hundreds of pale, pale hands clapping too fast in the dark, wearing their Sunday best. Carnegie gave them an organ, now with broken ivory-toothed keys, and all the floor pedals covered with bricks. The gaping hole in the wall behind it, starving men broke in and stole all the organ pipes to sell for scrap while the library was closed in the 1980s. Braddock's decay happened over a generation. A tooth neglected, rotted out of the head of southwestern Pennsylvania. The freeway keeps it cut off, isolated. I never see it in the Pittsburgh media, not even its five-and-dime drug-related crime. Last night, in the basement of a church, I met a 90-something-year-old widow of a foreman who made steel for J&L Works. She has cloudy eyes and clear sight. She told me what spoiled heat means. A spoiled heat is when a man falls into a crucible full of molten steel. It has to be discarded because of the bones and everything else from the body polluting the pore. And it wasn't until the end of the industry that families got the right to get the body back from the company, because the steel works would lose $1 million to close production, pour off the metal, and find the bones. You know, if you lost your daddy that way and he worked for Henry Clay Frick, the man himself would come to your row house and put the whole family out on the street, 'cause the house belonged to him and your whole family didn't work for him anymore. This broken city was allowed by people, by politicians local and remote, by the attrition of an industry over a generation. This suffering place was created by use for profit, use of bodies and towns and people for a profit reaped from the bodies of the workers. We deny it like we don't look at the boarded-up houses in each Pittsburgh neighborhood so we can live with it every day. Nobody owns up to the wounds Papa Steele made, 'cause he paid for everything. Instead, we the younger ones, we the ones who moved here, we reach out and touch the rage and loss in every third or fourth customer when we serve them coffee. Instead, I explain to the woman who moved here from Minneapolis to manage a cupcake shop exactly why the customers are so sensitive. Why they ask defensively, "Is this all you have? Is this all of your selection?" throughout the day. Like she's hiding the best cupcakes behind the counter for somebody else. Because everything good was taken away from them. Because their best friend moved away every year of their childhood. Because their children live in Tacoma, Washington now, and nobody can afford to travel, so they haven't met the grandkids. Because if they risk to feel joy, then they have to feel the pain, and it's better not to feel anything at all. Because why should we trust the politicians who sold us down the river in the first place to solve these problems? Because we can't talk about this with our neighbors. It raises the pain in each of us. Pain we must repress because we don't know how to deal with it. Because we've felt powerless for so long, and that is a hard, hard way to live, and we don't want to admit it. Spoiled heat. I have no judgment of this landscape. This is where I live. It makes living here easier to say it out loud, that I see these wounds in them, in this place. Spoiled